So, like I said, when you cite sources in MLA, you'll have both in-text citations and you'll have a separate works cited page that gives you a fuller entry about what that source is. So this should be a page that comes after the body of your essay. So you should start a new page after you finish your essay and title it the works cited page. In APA, this is called a references page, but in MLA, it's called a works cited page. And because of that, in MLA, we only put on the works cited page sources that are actually in the paper, not just sources that we consulted. That's one of the differences here. So for your works cited page, you should have at the very top of it the actual title Works Cited. And this, like the main title of your paper, should be centered and it should be at the top of your page. Again, it should be in normal font, no bold, underline, italics, or all caps. Each entry on your works cited page, you'll have a separate entry for each source. They should be arranged alphabetically. So whatever the first word is of that citation, alphabetize according to that. Like the rest of your paper, your works cited page should have double-spaced everything. And for each new entry, each new citation on your works cited page, you should have it be all the way over to the left, but then any line above one line, so more than one line, should be indented using the hanging function on Microsoft Word. And I'll show you how to do that in this video. So this is what a works cited page might look like on a student's essay. I have up top the phrase works cited in the center in normal font. I have still at the top right my last name as the author and the page number we're on. And then I have my citations. And as you can see, I can easily tell what an individual citation is because of this hanging function. So I start off here with Dr. Giloff, and each line of that citation that goes above the first is indented. So I know the next time I see a line that's all the way to the left, that indicates there's a new entry. And things here are alphabetized as well. I go from C, D, N, R, R, Y. Everything too here is double spaced. So let's talk about what some of the common citations are in MLA and the ones specifically you're going to be using for this compromise essay. So you might have a book in your essay. You can use a book as one of your sources. If I have a book, I generally, and this is true for most sources, we talked about how in text citations you usually cite by the author's last name. So typically the author's last name goes first, and a book is just the same. So here I give the author's last name, Bechtel, a comma, and then the whole first name and a period. So that's just in normal font here. So author first, starting with the author's last name. I then give the title of the book. And any longer works in MLA are written in italics. So Are You My Mother? ? That is the title of the book. And that is in italics. I then include who the publisher is of that book. So for this book, it's Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. So I include the entire name of the publisher, and you can find the publisher information on one of the first couple pages of the book. I follow that with a comma and the year it was published, period. So that's the citation for a book. It's pretty short, but a lot of these citations follow a similar format: author, title, publication information, and date. So let's say I'm citing a scholarly article that I found in a library database. I begin in kind of the same way as I did with the one for a book. I begin with the author. I do the author's last name first, comma, first name, so Smith, comma, Paul, period. And then I go by the title of the piece. Now, the article itself has a particular title that was written by Paul Smith. So I put the title of the article in quotation marks because it's considered a shorter work. It's not a full-length book, not a full-length movie, not a full-length newspaper. So I put in quotation marks, the title, which in this case is How Sparkly, a Rhetorical Analysis of Stephenie Meyer's Twilight. Now you can see, because this title refers to another book within it, that I italicized the word Twilight here. And like in most things, I put the period before I put the end quotation marks. And then I have to put the actual publication, the journal name that this singular article was in. So the article title is a smaller work inside a larger work. So the article title goes in quotation marks for that reason, but the journal title itself goes in italics. So this journal is called Journal of Cultural Studies. And then I include the volume and issue number. So after I give the title of the journal, I put comma, volume shortened, period, 27, comma, the issue number, number shortened, period, 3, comma. And then I include the year. So this was published in 2019. And if it's something you find in a database, it usually has page numbers. So in that journal, what pages can we find this article on? So I attached that on the end. I put PP period 41 to 50. So that shows the span of the pages that appears on. And then, like all my entries, I end it with a period. So that's generally the format for a scholarly article. Now, you might use online sources for this compromise essay, and I'm going to give you a couple of different ones you will encounter. So the one you'll probably use most for this compromise essay is some kind of editorial that maybe appears in some kind of larger magazine or newspaper. So I follow the same format. I begin with the author, I go on to the title, I go into the year. So this is written by Robert De Niro. So I start with last name first, De Niro, comma, Robert, period. I give the title of the article itself. I am the best actor of all time. I put that in quotation marks because it's a shorter work. It appeared in the larger publication, the New York Times. So I italicized that. I put a comma. I write the date that it was written, and this is the same format as you have on your first page of your document. It's date first, month, year. And when you write the month in MLA on the works cited, you shorten it usually to the first 3 letters and put a period after that. Then at the end, after I give the date, I put a comma and I give the URL for that. Now you'll note that I don't need to hyperlink this in MLA, and I also don't need to include the http://. So I can just put in a shortened version of the URL by taking that out. It doesn't have to be one that's accessible just by clicking on it. And then I end with a period. Let's say I was getting a source from YouTube. Someone gives their argument on YouTube in a video. Same thing. I have the name of the person who created it. That might be an author with a first name and a last name, or it might just be a username. I can put the username in here, and let's say it's just one word like McChicken. So I just put McChicken in there, and I don't need to include a last name for it. I put the title of the video in quotation marks. I put in italics the bigger source that it's in. So in this case, it's YouTube. If it has a separate uploader, I include that. I include the date, and I include the URL. You might also cite an online source that is just one page on a website, in which case, a lot of times those don't have an author. So if I don't have an author, I just begin with the title. So this website is called A Survey of Our City. So I put that in italics and I put that first. And then I include the organization or group that maintains and publishes that website. So let's say that's the University of St. Francis. I put the date. For websites, you might not find a full date and month, so I just put the year here that's listed on the website. And then I include the URL. And if it's something like this that's a website where it maybe is continually updated, I want to make sure to put in at the end of my citation when I actually access that source. So I know if I were to encounter this entry a couple years later, I have a sense of what that website looked like and what you're referring to at the time you wrote it. So include accessed and the date if it's just a website that is continually updated. For your compromise essay, you're going to be using interviews primarily. So the format for that is quite simple. It is author, or the person who you interviewed, their last name, comma, first name. You just write the title after that, personal interview, not italicized or in quotation marks. And then you have a date that that was done. So since we can't access your interviews, it's enough to do something like this to indicate that you conducted a personal interview. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly how to do a works cited page in Microsoft Word. So let me show you quickly what a works cited page would look like and how you do it in Microsoft Word. So let's say I've put in some sources into my works cited page. I've started it. Again, you want to make sure that it's double spaced, and you want to make sure that the title of this is centered. If perhaps you were on a different page, you finished writing your essay and you want to create a new page just for your works cited page, I can do that. I can skip ahead. So I go to the last line that I've written on the previous page. So let's say the last line I wrote was, and that is the conclusion of my essay. I can then insert a page break, and that will put my works cited on a new page. So I have this here, it's double spaced. Now I have different entries. I have 2 entries here. However, I know that I need to make the second line of this indented with a hanging indent. And here's how I do that. I highlight the sources or all of my references on here, and I go to the Home tab of Microsoft Word. I click on the paragraph, open the paragraph settings, and here I know my line spacing is double. I want it to stay double, but it gives me the option to do a special type of thing with spacing. So I can choose hanging here, and I click hanging. It should say 0.5, so if it doesn't, insert that, and I click OK. And now I've created a citation that has the first line flushed against the left, and the next line and the following and subsequent lines are going to be indented by 1/2 inch. So that's how I do that in Microsoft Word.